The suicide note was written in his wife's handwriting. Problem is, she'd been dead for 6 months. Detective Murphy found the mayor's biggest supporter with that note. But here's what matters. Remember the number 47. It's going to save Murphy's life. In exactly 20 seconds, you'll hear the mayor's actual confession. But first, Murphy made one mistake. He called it murder. 3 hours later, the mayor shows up at Murphy's apartment, alone, at 2 a.m. with photographs. 14 photographs of dead cops, all suicides, all left-handed, all holding guns in their right hands. Murphy would be number 15. The mayor reaches for his gun and, wait, I'm telling this wrong. The wife, she wasn't really dead. That's her voice on the recording. Building 47. Remember I said 47? Murphy's there right now, and he's still alive for the next 8 minutes. Shadow and Sax Radio presents The City Eats Its Own. Pour yourself something strong. Kill the lights. Because once Murphy opens that case file, once he sees what's really in that suicide note, the city's going to eat another one of its own.
Some cities drown you before you ever reach the water. They say a city is only as good as the people who run it. By that measure, Los Angeles in 1953 wasn't worth the dirt it was built on. My name is Vincent Carver. I was a homicide detective for the LAPD for 23 years. 23 years of watching this city rot from the inside out, like fruit left too long in the California sun. 23 years of arresting the small fish while the big fish swam in pools paid for with blood money. I had 2 weeks left until retirement. 2 weeks until I could walk away from the badge, the gun, and the crushing weight of knowing that nothing I'd done had made a damn bit of difference. This was before my hands started shaking. That's when they found the first body. It was a Tuesday morning, the kind of morning where the smog sits so heavy over the city that you can taste the poison in every breath. I was in the precinct, filling out paperwork. The only thing cops do more than lying is filling out forms about the lying. When Captain Morrison walked in. Morrison was 58, with a face like cracked leather and eyes that had stopped pretending to care about anything except his pension. He dropped a manila folder on my desk. The sound it made, that soft thump, echoed louder than it should have. I'd hear that sound in my head for years. "Carver," he said, "got a fresh one for you. Body found in Griffith Park, near the observatory. Gunshot wound to the head. Execution style." I didn't look up from my paperwork. "Give it to Henshaw. I'm short-timing it, Captain. 2 weeks and I'm gone." It's not that simple. Something in his voice made me look up. Morrison's expression was carefully neutral, which meant he was hiding something. After 23 years, you learn to read the lies in a man's face better than the truth. "The victim is Andrew Beckett," Morrison said quietly. "City Councilman, rising star in the Democratic Party. 38 years old. Wife. 2 kids. Squeaky clean record." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Politicians getting murdered wasn't unusual in Los Angeles. But politicians getting murdered and landing on my desk 2 weeks before retirement. That was a message. "Why me?" I asked. "Because the mayor specifically requested you. Said you're the only detective in this department he trusts to handle it quietly and professionally." "The mayor doesn't trust anybody," I said. "Least of all me." Morrison leaned in close. His breath smelled like coffee and antacids. "Look, Vince, do this one case. Do it by the book. Close it quick and clean. And you walk out of here with full pension and the gratitude of some very powerful people. Make waves and..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. I looked at the folder. Andrew Beckett's face stared up at me from a photograph. Handsome, confident, The kind of smile that made people believe in a better tomorrow. The kind of smile that usually hid something rotten underneath. I pulled out my lighter. Silver. Tarnished. The inscription worn smooth. To Vince. Stay true. A gift from my first partner. 20 years dead. I flicked it open. Closed. Open. Closed. A habit when thinking. The weight of it in my palm. Solid and real. I'll take it, I said. But I do it my way. I follow the evidence wherever it leads. That's the deal. Morrison straightened up. Just don't let it lead anywhere that embarrasses the department, or the mayor, or anyone else who matters. In this city, I said, everyone who matters is already embarrassed. They just don't know it yet. Here's where it all went wrong. The crime scene was in a secluded area of Griffith Park, up near the observatory where tourists came to look at the stars and pretend they weren't standing on top of dreams buried in shallow graves. My partner, Danny Ortega, was already there when I arrived. Danny was 29, ambitious, and still believed the system could be fixed from the inside. I'd been trying to crush that optimism for the 3 years we'd worked together, but it kept surviving like a cockroach after a nuclear blast. "Morning, Vince," Danny said as I ducked under the crime scene tape. "Hell of a way to start your last 2 weeks, huh?" "Every day in this department is hell," I said. "This is just a different circle." The body was lying face down in the dirt, about 20 yards off the main path. Andrew Beckett, city councilman and future corpse, was wearing an expensive suit that was now soaked with blood and morning dew. Single gunshot wound to the back of the head. The killer had been standing directly behind him. I knelt down, careful not to disturb the evidence. The ground around the body was relatively undisturbed, no signs of a struggle. Beckett had either known his killer or hadn't seen them coming. My lighter was in my hand again. Flick, flick, the metallic click punctuating my thoughts. "Wallet's still on him," Danny said. 200 in cash. Credit, cards, everything. So not a robbery. "No," I said. This was personal. Or professional. In this city, it's hard to tell the difference. I looked around the crime scene. The location was deliberate, isolated enough for privacy, but visible enough that the body would be found quickly. Someone wanted to send a message. "Any witnesses?" I asked. "Jogger found him about an hour ago. Called it in. Uniforms canvassed the area, but you know how it is up here. Place is empty before dawn, except for..." Danny trailed off. "Except for people who don't want to be seen," I finished. "Lovers, drug dealers, blackmailers, all of Los Angeles' finest." A siren wailed in the distance, cutting through the morning air. The coroner's assistant, a tired-looking woman named Patricia Hayes, walked over. "Preliminary estimate puts time of death between midnight and 2 a.m. Won't know more until we get him downtown. But I can tell you this. That's a .38 caliber wound. Clean shot. Whoever did this knew what they were doing." "Professional hit?" Danny asked. "Or someone who wanted it to look like one," I said. I stood up, my knees cracking loud enough to wake the dead. Except Beckett wasn't waking up. Not ever. Whatever secrets he'd been carrying, they were either buried with him or about to bury someone else. "Check his schedule for yesterday," I told Danny. "Find out where he was, who he met with, what he was working on, and do it quiet. The captain made it clear we're supposed to close this fast and clean." "Since when do you care about what the captain wants?" Danny asked. "Since I realized I'm too old to fight every battle," I said. "But that doesn't mean I'm going to roll over. We follow the evidence, wherever it leads." Danny nodded, but I could see the concern in his eyes. He knew as well as I did that in Los Angeles, evidence had a way of leading to places that people with power preferred, stayed hidden. As we walked back to the car, I looked up at the observatory. It stood white and gleaming against the smog-stained sky, a monument to humanity's desire to look upward and outward instead of down at the dirt we were standing in. Andrew Beckett had been looking down, had seen something he shouldn't have seen, and someone had made sure he'd never look at anything again. The precinct was buzzing when we got back. Word had already leaked that a city councilman was dead, and the reporters were circling like vultures sensing a meal. I pushed through the crowd without comment and headed straight to my desk. My phone was ringing before I even sat down. Danny brought me Beckett's file 20 minutes later. Here's what we've got. Beckett spent yesterday in City Hall from 9 a.m. until about 6 p.m. According to his secretary, he had meetings with various department heads. Nothing unusual. Then he went home to his family in Hancock Park. And after that? I asked. His wife says he got a phone call around 9 p.m. She couldn't hear the conversation, but she said he seemed agitated. He told her he had to go out to meet someone, said he'd be back by midnight. Did she say who called? No. And here's the interesting part. There's no record of any incoming calls to their house phone around that time. I checked with the phone company. I leaned back in my chair. The lighter was in my hand again. Flick. Flick. So either someone called from a payphone, or the phone company's lying about their records. Or someone at the phone company is making records disappear, Danny suggested. Welcome to Los Angeles, I said, where everyone's either bought or intimidated, and usually both. I flipped through Beckett's file. Clean record, like Morrison had said. Grew up in Pasadena, went to UCLA, law degree from Stanford. Practiced corporate law for 5 years before running for city council. Won by a landslide. Focused on urban development and public housing reform. Public housing, I said aloud. That's where the real money is. Construction contracts, kickbacks, bribes. If Beckett was actually trying to reform the system instead of just pretending to. Then he made enemies, Danny finished. Big ones. I kept reading. Beckett had been vocal about investigating irregularities in several recent development projects. He'd requested audits, demanded transparency. All the things that people who steal millions of dollars hate to hear. He was building a case, I said. Not a legal case, a political one. He was going after someone. Or someone's, Danny said. This city's got more corrupt officials than honest ones. That's not saying much, I muttered. Rain started hitting the window. Soft at first, then harder. The sound filled the room like static. My phone rang. It was Morrison. Carver, Mayor wants to see you. Now. I'm in the middle of an investigation. He wasn't asking. Get to City Hall. 20 minutes. The line went dead. I looked at Danny. Keep digging. Check Beckett's bank records, his personal files, anything you can find. And, Danny, watch your back. People who get curious about this kind of thing have a habit of ending up like Beckett. What about you? He asked. I'm going to go have a conversation with the second most corrupt man in Los Angeles, I said, and find out why he's so interested in this case. Pay attention to this part. It'll matter later. Los Angeles City Hall was a monument to ambition and decay. Built in the 1920s, when the city still believed in its own mythology, it now stood as a reminder that every empire eventually rots from the center out. I took the elevator to the 5th floor, where Mayor Richard Calhoun kept his office. Calhoun was 62, with silver hair and the kind of face that looked good on campaign posters, but hollow in person. He'd been mayor for 8 years, which in Los Angeles politics meant he either had dirt on everyone, or everyone had dirt on him. Usually both. His secretary waved me through without a word. The mayor's office was exactly what you'd expect. Mahogany desk, leather chairs, windows overlooking a city that looked almost beautiful from a distance. Up close, you could see the cracks. Detective Carver, Calhoun said, not standing up. "Thank you for coming so quickly." "Like I had a choice," I said. He gestured to a chair. I remained standing. My lighter was in my hand. Flick. Flick. The sound filled the silence. "Andrew Beckett was a good man," Calhoun said. "A dedicated public servant. His death is a tragedy for this city." "Save the eulogy for the funeral," I said. "Why am I here?" Calhoun's expression hardened slightly. "I want to make sure this investigation is handled appropriately. Andrew was working on some sensitive matters. I'd hate for his death to become a media circus that damages his family or his legacy." "Funny thing about murders," I said. "They tend to raise questions. Questions like, who wanted him dead and why?" "I'm sure it was a random act of violence," Calhoun said smoothly. "Wrong place, wrong time. This city can be dangerous, especially late at night." "Execution-style killing in a secluded area after a mysterious phone call," I said. "That's not random, that's planned." Calhoun stood up, walking to the window. Rain streaked down the glass behind him, making the city below look like it was melting. "Detective, you have 2 weeks until retirement. 2 weeks until you can walk away from all of this and enjoy the rest of your life. I'd hate to see you jeopardize that by pursuing theories that can't be proven." "Is that a threat?" I asked. "It's advice from someone who's seen good men make bad decisions and pay for it." He turned to face me. "Close this case quickly. Find a convenient suspect. Maybe a robbery gone wrong. Maybe a jealous lover. Give the press something to chew on that doesn't raise uncomfortable questions about city business." "And if the evidence points somewhere else?" I asked. "Somewhere uncomfortable." Calhoun smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Then, I'd suggest you reconsider what evidence you choose to follow, for your own sake." I walked to the door, then stopped. Looked at my lighter one more time. The inscription worn smooth but still there. "Stay true." You know what I've learned in 23 years, Mayor? The truth always comes out. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually, everything buried comes back to the surface. "That's very poetic," Calhoun said. "But in the real world, the truth is whatever the people with power say it is. And right now, I have the power." "We'll see about that," I said. As I left City Hall, I felt the weight of 2 weeks pressing down on me. 2 weeks until retirement. 2 weeks until I could walk away from this corrupt, rotting city and never look back. But Andrew Beckett didn't get 2 weeks. He got a bullet in the back of his head. And whatever secrets he'd uncovered died with him, unless I could bring them back to life. If you think you know where this is going, you don't. Danny had been busy. When I got back to the precinct, my desk was covered with files, bank statements, and notes scrawled in his barely legible handwriting. "Found something," he said, excitement in his voice, that youthful enthusiasm that hadn't been beaten out of him yet. Beckett's bank records show 3 large cash deposits over the past 6 months, $10,000 each time, always in cash, no source listed. $30,000, I said. That's either payoff money or blackmail money. Or both, Danny suggested. What if someone was paying him to look the other way on something, and he decided to grow a conscience? Dangerous thing, a conscience, I said. Gets people killed. I studied the bank statements. The deposits were made on the 15th of each month, March, May, and July. Regular as clockwork. Professional. Thunder rumbled outside. The storm was getting worse. What about his personal files? I asked. That's where it gets interesting, Danny said. He pulled out a folder. Beckett kept a home office. His wife let me take a look. Found this hidden in a locked drawer. He handed me a leather-bound notebook. Inside were pages of handwritten notes, dates, names, dollar amounts. It read like a ledger for criminal enterprise. Golden State Development Corporation, I read aloud. $4 million. Contract awarded March 1952. Parkview Housing Project, $6 million, July 1952. West Side Renewal Initiative, $8 million, November 1952. All city contracts, Danny said. All awarded to the same company, Golden State Development. And here's the kicker. The company's owned by a shell corporation that traces back to Vincent DeLuca. I felt my blood run cold. Vincent DeLuca. Everyone in Los Angeles knew that name, even if they pretended not to. DeLuca ran the biggest organized crime operation on the West Coast. Gambling, prostitution, narcotics, and apparently, construction contracts. Beckett was building a case against DeLuca, I said slowly. That's what got him killed. Has to be, Danny agreed. But here's what I don't understand. If DeLuca wanted Beckett dead, why make it look like a professional hit? Why not stage a robbery or an accident? This just draws attention. Unless drawing attention was the point, I said. Unless this was a message to everyone else in city government. This is what happens when you don't play ball. My lighter. Flick. Flick. The sound steady as my heartbeat. I sat down heavily. 23 years, and the corruption never changed. It just got bigger, bolder, more brazen. DeLuca had bought and paid for half of City Hall, and the other half was too scared to do anything about it. We need to talk to someone at Golden State Development, I said. Someone who can tell us about these contracts. Vince, Danny said carefully. If DeLuca's involved, we need to be careful. Really careful. The last cop who investigated him too closely ended up at the bottom of the San Pedro Harbor. I remember, I said. Detective Jim Russo. Good cop. Better man. They ruled it suicide. Was it? About as much as Beckett's death was a random robbery, I said. I should have walked away here. Golden State Development Corporation had offices in a gleaming high-rise downtown, the kind of building that seemed to mock the poverty and decay spreading through the rest of the city. We were met in the lobby by a receptionist who looked like she'd been hired more for her legs than her typing skills. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked, her voice bored. I showed her my badge. "We need to speak with whoever's in charge of city contracts." She picked up a phone, murmured something I couldn't hear, then hung up. "Mr. Castellano will see you. 20th floor." The elevator ride was silent. Danny was nervous. I could see it in the way he kept adjusting his tie, checking his gun. I didn't blame him. We were walking into the lion's den with nothing but our badges and the naive belief that those badges meant something. My lighter felt heavier in my pocket. Marcus Castellano was waiting in a corner office with a view of the city that probably cost more than I made in a year. He was 45, with perfectly styled hair and a suit that screamed expensive lawyer, trying to look like an honest businessman. "Detectives," he said warmly, extending a hand. "How can I help the LAPD today?" "We're investigating the murder of Andrew Beckett," I said. "City Councilman. We understand your company had several contracts with the city that were under his oversight." Castellano's smile didn't waver. "Tragic. Absolutely tragic. Andrew was a wonderful man. We're all devastated by his death." "You knew him personally?" Danny asked. "Of course. Anyone in development knows the city council members. We work closely together to build a better Los Angeles." "Right," I said. "A better Los Angeles. How much did you pay him to look the other way on contract irregularities?" The smile finally cracked. "I don't appreciate the implication, Detective." "I don't care what you appreciate," I said. Beckett had records showing $30,000 in cash deposits to his account over 6 months. He also had detailed notes on your company's contracts and some interesting discrepancies in billing. Then perhaps you should ask Councilman Beckett about those discrepancies, Castellano said smoothly. Oh wait, you can't, because someone murdered him. Which, if I may say so, seems rather convenient for your investigation. Dead men make excellent scapegoats. I stepped closer to his desk. My lighter was in my hand. Flick. Flick. The sound made Castellano's eye twitch. We also know that Golden State Development is owned by Vincent DeLuca. That's public record. What's not public is how much of the city government DeLuca owns along with it. Castellano's expression went cold. I think this conversation is over. If you have any further questions, direct them to our legal department. Now get out before I call your captain and have you removed from this case for harassment. One more thing, I said. Where were you between midnight and 2 a.m. yesterday? Home. Asleep. With my wife, who will confirm that. Now get out. As we rode the elevator back down, Danny let out a long breath. That went well? He's scared, I said. Did you see how fast he went from friendly to threatening? He knows something. Yeah, Danny said. He knows that we're dead if we keep pushing this. The elevator doors opened onto the lobby. As we walked toward the exit, a man in a dark suit stepped in front of us. He was big, 6'3", maybe 240, with the kind of face that had seen and delivered a lot of violence. Mr. DeLuca would like to speak with you, he said. His voice was surprisingly soft. He's waiting in his car outside. And if we decline? I asked. The man smiled. It wasn't pleasant. Then Mr. DeLuca will be disappointed. And you don't want to disappoint Mr. DeLuca. Danny's hand moved toward his gun. I shook my head slightly. Let's go hear what he has to say. The car was a black Cadillac parked in a loading zone, the kind of privilege that comes with owning half a city. The rear door was open. Vincent DeLuca sat in the back seat like a king on a throne. He was 60 years old, heavy-set, with gray hair and eyes that looked dead until they focused on you. Then they looked hungry. Detective Carver, he said, as I slid into the seat next to him. Danny got in from the other side, sandwiching me between them. The door closed. The big man got in the front. Mr. DeLuca, I said, to what do we owe the pleasure? I heard you were investigating poor Andrew's death, DeLuca said. His voice had the faint trace of an accent. Italian, maybe Sicilian. I wanted to express my condolences. Andrew was a good man. We worked together on several city projects. By worked together, you mean you paid him to approve your fraudulent contracts? I asked. DeLuca smiled. Careful, detective. Slander is a serious accusation. So is murder, I said. Indeed it is, which is why I wanted to speak with you personally, to make sure there are no misunderstandings. Andrew Beckett's death was tragic, but it had nothing to do with me or my business interests. Then why are we having this conversation? Danny asked. DeLuca turned his dead eyes on Danny. Because I want to help. I want to make sure the right person is caught and punished. And I want to make sure that 2 dedicated detectives understand that some investigations lead nowhere productive. That sounds a lot like a threat, I said. Call it survival instincts, DeLuca said. The same instincts I tried to share with Detective Russo 3 years ago. Unfortunately, he didn't listen. The air in the car went cold. You're admitting you had Russo killed? I said quietly. I'm admitting nothing. I'm simply noting that Detective Russo chose to investigate matters that were beyond his understanding. He created problems for himself, problems that led to his unfortunate suicide. DeLuca paused. Rain hammered the roof of the Cadillac. You have 2 weeks until retirement, Detective Carver. 2 weeks until you can walk away with your pension, your health, and your life intact. Detective Ortega here has a wife and a new baby at home. It would be a shame if anything happened to either of you, because you insisted on asking questions that no one wants answered. I pulled out my lighter, held it up so DeLuca could see the inscription. Stay true. Get out of my car, I said. DeLuca smiled. This is my car, Detective. You're the guest. But I'll let you leave now. Just remember our conversation. Remember that this city has rules. And those rules are enforced by people like me, not people like you. The door opened. We got out. The Cadillac pulled away, disappearing into traffic like a shark sliding back into dark water. Danny was shaking. Jesus Christ. He basically admitted to killing Russo. And probably Beckett, too. And we can't prove any of it, I said. That's the whole point. He knows we know, and he knows there's nothing we can do about it. So what now? Danny asked. We just walk away? I looked up at the high-rise where Golden State Development had their offices, where men in expensive suits moved money around and called it business, while people died in the streets. Danny stared at his hands. My daughter's 6 months old, Vince. She's never gonna remember me if I die for this. Then we don't die, I said. I looked at my lighter, the inscription worn but still legible. Stay true. No, I said. Now we figure out what Beckett found that scared DeLuca enough to kill him. Because whatever it was big. Bigger than just fraud or kickbacks. How do you know? Danny asked. Because Vincent DeLuca doesn't personally threaten cops over routine corruption, I said. He only comes out of hiding when something threatens his entire operation. Which means Beckett found something that could bring down not just Golden State Development, but DeLuca's whole empire. And now we're walking in Beckett's footsteps, Danny said quietly. Yeah, I said. We are. We stood there on the sidewalk, 2 cops in a city of millions, trying to solve a murder that powerful men wanted to stay unsolved. The sun was setting, painting the buildings in shades of gold and orange, beautiful and poisonous, just like everything else in Los Angeles. Come on, I said. Let's go talk to Mrs. Beckett. Maybe her husband told her what he found before someone put a bullet in his head. The Beckett house was in Hancock Park, one of those neighborhoods where the lawns were always green and the secrets were always buried deep. A Spanish colonial revival mansion that probably cost more than I'd make in 3 lifetimes. Sarah Beckett answered the door herself. She was 35, blonde, with the kind of beauty that would have made her a movie star if she'd been born 20 years earlier. But her eyes were red from crying, and her hands shook as she led us into the living room. Thank you for seeing us, Mrs. Beckett, I said gently. I know this is a difficult time. Please, she said, call me Sarah. And yes, it's unbearable. Andrew was everything to me, to our children. And now he's gone. And I don't understand why. That's what we're trying to find out, Danny said. Can you tell us about the night he died? You said he received a phone call? Sarah nodded, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Around 9 p.m., I answered. But when I asked who it was, they just asked for Andrew. He took the call in his study. I could hear his voice through the door. He sounded agitated, angry almost. Then he came out and said he had to go meet someone. Did he say who? I asked. No, just that it was important, that it couldn't wait. I asked if everything was okay, and she paused, fighting back tears. He kissed me and said everything would be fine, that he was going to fix something. Those were his last words to me. I'm going to fix something. Mrs. Beckett, Sarah, was your husband working on anything unusual in the weeks before his death? I asked. Any investigations or projects that seemed to worry him? She hesitated. He'd been stressed, working late nights in his study, making phone calls, reviewing documents. He said he'd found something at City Hall, something that was going to change everything. Did he tell you what? Danny asked. No, he said it was better if I didn't know, for my safety. for the children's safety. She looked up at us with desperate eyes. Was he right? Is my family in danger? I wanted to lie, wanted to tell her everything would be fine. But I'd spent 23 years watching people die because someone lied to them about how much danger they were in. I don't know, I said honestly. But I think it would be wise to be careful for the next few weeks. Vary your routine. Make sure your children are always supervised. And if anyone approaches you asking about your husband's work, call me immediately. I gave her my card. She took it with shaking hands. Can we see his study? I asked. Sarah led us down a hallway, lined with family photographs. Happy moments frozen in time before death came calling. My own wedding photo looked like that once, before I learned that being a good cop meant being a bad husband. Before she left. Before I chose this city over everything else. The study was at the end of the hall, a wood-paneled room with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a large oak desk. The police already searched it, Sarah said. They said they didn't find anything unusual. I looked at Danny. We both knew what that meant. Someone had gotten here first, either to take evidence or to make sure we wouldn't find any. I went through the desk drawers anyway. Nothing but office supplies, old letters, family photos. The bookshelves held legal texts, political biographies, and a complete set of the Encyclopedia Britannica that looked like it had never been opened. Danny was checking the filing cabinet. Bills, tax records, insurance policies, all normal stuff. I stood in the center of the room, trying to think like Andrew Beckett. He'd found something big, something worth dying for. Where would he hide it? My lighter was in my hand. Flick, flick, the sound helping me think. Then I noticed the photograph on the wall. It was of the Beckett family at the beach. Sarah, Andrew, and their 2 kids building sandcastles. A happy moment. An innocent moment. I took the photograph off the wall. Behind it was a safe built into the wall. Small, maybe 10 inches square. The kind of safe that came standard in expensive houses for keeping jewelry or important documents. Sarah, I called. Did you know about this safe? She came back into the study. What safe? I've never seen that before. The safe had a combination lock. 4 numbers. Any idea what the combination might be? Asked. Birthday? Anniversary? Sarah shook her head. I didn't even know it was there. Andrew must have had it installed without telling me. I tried a few obvious combinations. Their wedding anniversary, Sarah's birthday, the kids' birthdays. Nothing worked. Then I looked at the photograph again. The date written on the back, July 4th, 1950, the day at the beach. I tried 0704. The safe clicked open. Inside was a single item, a thick folder sealed with tape. On the front, in Andrew Beckett's handwriting, insurance. I opened it. Inside were hundreds of pages. Financial records, bank statements, property deeds, contracts, and photographs. Lots of photographs. City officials shaking hands with known criminals, cash changing hands. Buildings that were supposed to be low-income housing, but looked more like luxury apartments. And at the center of it all, a detailed breakdown of how Vincent DeLuca had used Golden State Development to steal nearly $50 million from the city over the past 5 years. Fraudulent contracts, inflated costs, phantom employees, shell companies. It was a complete map of corruption that reached from the bottom of the city government all the way to the top. Jesus, Danny whispered. This is everything. This could bring down half of City Hall. I kept reading. The documentation was thorough. Beckett had been a lawyer before he was a politician. He knew how to build a case. Every transaction was documented. Every bribe was recorded. Every fraudulent contract was exposed. And there, near the end of the file, was something that made my blood run cold. A list of names. City officials who were on DeLuca's payroll. The ones who approved contracts, looked the other way, helped launder money through city projects. Mayor Richard Calhoun, Captain Frank Morrison, District Attorney Thomas Wu, Judge Catherine Sinclair, and at least a dozen others. "Oh God," Sarah said, looking over my shoulder. Is that why they killed him?" "Yeah," I said quietly. "That's why they killed him." Andrew Beckett had uncovered a conspiracy that reached into every level of Los Angeles government. And when he'd tried to expose it, they'd murdered him to keep him quiet. The question was, what were Danny and I going to do with this information? "We need to get this to the FBI," Danny said, "or the state attorney general, someone outside the local system." "They'll kill us first," I said. "The moment they find out we have this, we're dead. Both of us." "So what do we do?" Danny asked. "Let them get away with it? Let Beckett's murder go unsolved?" I looked at the file, at the evidence that Andrew Beckett had died to preserve, at the truth that powerful men wanted to keep buried. I looked at my lighter, the inscription, "Stay true." "No," I said. "We finish what Beckett started, but we do it smart, and we do it fast, before they realize what we know." Sarah was crying now. "My husband died for this. For paper? For evidence that won't bring him back?" "Your husband died because he believed the truth mattered," I said gently. "Because he believed that this city could be better than it is. That's worth something. That's worth everything." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "Then finish it. Make his death mean something." We made copies. Multiple copies. One set went to Danny's safety deposit box. One set went to mine. One set went to a lawyer I trusted. One of the last honest men I knew in this city. Then we went back to the precinct to figure out our next move. It was past midnight now. The precinct was quiet except for the night shift. Danny made coffee while I spread the documents across my desk, trying to figure out the best way to bring down an empire of corruption without getting ourselves killed in the process. Outside, thunder rolled across the city like distant artillery. "We go to the press," Danny said. "The Los Angeles Times or the Herald Express. Someone will run with this story." "And who do you think owns the newspapers?" I asked. "You think the press in this city is any cleaner than the police department? The moment we hand this to a reporter, either the story disappears or we do." "Then what?" Danny asked, frustration in his voice. "We just sit on this forever? Watch DeLuca and everyone else get away with murder?" "No," I said. "We need someone we can trust, absolutely. Someone who's too visible to kill quietly. Someone who has the power and the credibility to make this stick." I thought for a moment, going through names in my head. Every person of power or influence I'd encountered in 23 years. Trying to find one, just one, who wasn't bought, intimidated, or compromised. My lighter was in my hand. Flick. Flick. Thinking. Then it hit me. "Senator Margaret Chen," I said. She chairs the State Oversight Committee for Municipal Corruption. She's been trying to clean up California politics for 10 years, and she's still alive, which means she's either clean or protected. Or both, Danny said. "But how do we get to her? She's in Sacramento? And the moment we leave Los Angeles with this evidence, we're vulnerable." "We don't go to her," I said. "We bring her to us. Or rather, we give her a reason to come asking questions." I picked up the phone and called the senator's office. Got an aide who sounded annoyed at being disturbed after midnight. I explained that I was an LAPD detective with information about large-scale municipal corruption involving murder, organized crime, and city officials up to the mayoral level. The aide's tone changed. She said the senator would be in Los Angeles tomorrow and could meet with me at noon. A public place, somewhere safe. I gave her the address of a coffee shop downtown, public enough to be safe, but private enough to talk. Then I hung up. "Now what?" Danny asked. "Now we survive until noon tomorrow," I said. "Which means we don't go home. We don't follow our routines. We stay in public places and we watch our backs." Danny looked at his watch. "It's 12 hours until the meeting. We can't hide for 12 hours. "We're not hiding," I said. "We're setting a trap." I called Captain Morrison at his home, woke him up, which gave me a petty satisfaction. "Carver," he growled, "this better be important." "Got a break in the Beckett case," I said. "Found some evidence at his house. Need to discuss it with you first thing in the morning. Can we meet? Say, 8 a.m. at the precinct?" There was a pause. Too long. Morrison was thinking, calculating, wondering what I'd found and whether it was worth worrying about. "What kind of evidence?" he asked. "Better if I show you in person," I said. "It's sensitive. Involves people high up." Another pause. "All right." 8 a.m., my office. He hung up. Danny was staring at me. "What are you doing?" "Morrison's on DeLuca's payroll. You just told him we found evidence." "Exactly," I said. "Now he has to choose. Does he try to stop us himself, or does he call DeLuca and have him do it? Either way, we'll know who's coming for us." "And if they come with guns?" Danny asked. "Then we defend ourselves," I said. "We're cops, remember? We're allowed to shoot back." We left the precinct through a side door. Took my car, a beat-up Ford that looked like every other cop car in the city. Danny drove while I watched the mirrors for anyone following us. Rain streaked the windshield. The wipers beat a steady rhythm. Swish, swish, swish. We checked into a cheap motel on Sunset Boulevard, the kind of place where nobody asked questions and nobody remembered faces. Paid cash, took turns sleeping, one of us always awake and watching the door. At 4 a.m., Danny's turn to sleep. I sat by the window watching the street. Los Angeles at night was a different city. Neon signs reflected in rain-slicked streets. Prostitutes on corners, dealers in doorways. All the things that the tourist brochures didn't show. This was the real Los Angeles. The city that ate its own. The city where justice was just another form of crime. My lighter was in my hand. Flick. Flick. The weight of it familiar, comforting. My phone rang. The motel phone, not my personal line, which meant someone knew where we were. I picked it up carefully. "Carver. Detective." It was Vincent DeLuca's voice, calm, almost friendly. "I heard you found something interesting at the Beckett house. I'd very much like to discuss it with you." "I'm sure you would," I said. "You're making a mistake," DeLuca said. "Whatever you think you found, it's not what it seems." Beckett was a troubled man. He was taking bribes, embezzling from the city. "The evidence you found? It's forged. A desperate attempt by a corrupt politician to frame innocent people." "Interesting theory," I said. "You should tell it to Senator Chen. I'm meeting with her tomorrow to hand over everything Beckett collected." Silence on the other end. Then, that would be unfortunate for everyone involved. "Is that a threat?" I asked. "It's a prediction. You're a smart man, Detective Carver. Smart enough to know that this city has been run a certain way for a very long time. Smart enough to know that people who try to change the system end up like Andrew Beckett." "Or Detective Russo," I said. "Exactly. You understand. So let me make you an offer. A generous offer. $500,000. Cash. Tax-free. All you have to do is lose that evidence and close the Beckett case as a robbery gone wrong. $500,000. More money than I'd make in 10 years of being a cop. Enough to retire comfortably. To forget about corruption and murder and all the things that had eaten away at my soul for 23 years. I looked at my lighter, at the inscription worn smooth but still readable. "Stay true." "No," I said. No? DeLuca sounded genuinely surprised. Detective, I don't think you understand. I understand perfectly, I said. You're offering me money to ignore a murder, to let you get away with stealing from this city and killing anyone who gets in your way. The answer is no. Now and always. Then you're a fool, DeLuca said, and the friendliness was gone from his voice. And fools don't live long in this city. Neither do murderers, I said. Eventually, I hung up. Danny was awake now, sitting up in bed. That was DeLuca? Yeah, he offered me $500,000 to walk away. Jesus, $500,000? That's... Danny trailed off. That's the price of my soul, apparently, I said. Good to know I'm worth something. Were you tempted? Danny asked. I thought about lying. Thought about pretending I was some incorruptible hero who never wavered. But Danny deserved the truth. Yeah, I said, for about 10 seconds. Then I remembered Andrew Beckett, Jim Russo, all the other good people who died because men like DeLuca think they own this city. I paused, held up my lighter so Danny could see it in the dim light. We can't let him win, Danny, not this time. Even if it kills us? Danny asked quietly. Especially if it kills us, I said. Because then, at least we'll die like Andrew Beckett, trying to do the right thing. That's better than living like Vincent DeLuca. Danny nodded slowly. Okay, then let's make sure we stay alive long enough to finish this. At 6 a.m., we left the motel, took side streets and alleys, watching constantly for anyone following us. Stopped at a diner for breakfast. Probably our last meal, I thought darkly. Might as well make it a good one. The diner was nearly empty. Just us, a waitress who looked like life had beaten her down years ago, and an old man reading a newspaper. We sat in a corner booth where we could watch both the door and the street. Rain hammered the windows. Each drop hit like a fist. My coffee tasted like burnt copper. Danny's hands were shaking so bad his fork kept scraping the plate. Metal on ceramic, a sound that made my teeth ache. The city was drowning slowly. So were we. What if Morrison doesn't show? Danny asked. What if he just sends DeLuca's men? Then we improvise, I said. We've been improvising this whole case. My eggs arrived. I wasn't hungry, but I ate anyway. Fuel for whatever was coming. My lighter sat on the table between us, the inscription facing up. Stay true. At 7:30 a.m., we headed to the precinct. The morning shift was just arriving. Cops who had no idea that two of their own were about to either bring down the entire department or get killed trying. I'd told Chen's noon, but I didn't plan on waiting that long. If Morrison was going to move, he'd move early, which meant Chen needed to move earlier. I'd called her back at 5 a.m. and changed the meet time. She understood immediately. Sometimes the difference between genius and luck is just timing. We went straight to Morrison's office. The door was closed. I knocked. Come in, Morrison's voice called. We entered. Morrison was alone, sitting behind his desk with his hands folded. He looked tired, old, like a man who'd carried too much weight for too long. Morning, Captain, I said. Thanks for meeting with us so early. Let's make this quick, Carver, Morrison said. What did you find? Evidence, I said. Lots of evidence. Beckett had been building a case against Golden State Development, against Vincent DeLuca, against everyone on DeLuca's payroll. Morrison's expression didn't change. That's quite an accusation. It's not an accusation, I said. It's documentation. Bank records, contracts, photographs. Everything we need to prove that DeLuca has been stealing from the city for years. And that city officials, including you, helped him do it. Morrison stood up slowly. Detective Carver, I think you're confused. Sleep deprived, perhaps? making wild accusations against your superior officer. That's grounds for suspension. Maybe psychiatric evaluation. I have the evidence, I said. And in 3 hours, I'm handing it over to Senator Chen. She'll open an investigation. The FBI will get involved, and everyone on DeLuca's payroll will go down, including you. Morrison walked to the window, looking out at the city. Rain streaked down the glass, distorting everything beyond it. 23 years, he said quietly. You've been a cop for 23 years. You know how this city works. You know that nothing ever really changes. The corruption is too deep, too widespread. Even if you bring down DeLuca, someone else will take his place. Someone worse, probably. Maybe, I said. But at least Andrew Beckett's murder will be solved. At least his family will know he died trying to do the right thing. Noble, Morrison said. Stupid, but noble. He turned around. He was holding a gun. I'm sorry, Vince, Morrison said. I really am. You were a good cop, but you're forcing my hand. I can't let you hand that evidence to Senator Chen. Too many people would go down. Too much money at stake. Danny's hand went to his gun. Morrison shook his head. Don't, Ortega. I'm faster than you think. And if I have to shoot both of you, I will. I'll say you came in here making crazy accusations, threatened me, and I had to defend myself. Internal Affairs will believe me. I'm a captain with 30 years of service. You're just two detectives who got in over their heads. You won't get away with this, I said. Yes, I will, Morrison said. Just like I got away with helping kill Jim Russo. Just like I got away with covering up dozens of murders over the years. This city protects its own. And I'm one of its own. You're not. He raised the gun, pointing it at my chest. Give me the evidence, he said. All of it. Every copy. Or I shoot you both right now and deal with the consequences later. My lighter was in my hand. I flicked it open. The flame caught, small and bright in the dim office. No, I said. Morrison's finger tightened on the trigger. Don't be a hero, Vince. Heroes die young in this city. I'm already old, I said. Might as well die like a hero. The doctor burst open. Senator Margaret Chen stood there, flanked by 2 FBI agents. Captain Morrison, lower your weapon. You're under arrest for conspiracy, corruption, and accessory to murder. Morrison's face went white. You weren't supposed to be here until noon. I moved the meeting up, Chen said calmly. When Detective Carver called, he mentioned there might be resistance from within the LAPD. I thought it prudent to arrive early, with federal backup. Morrison looked at me, betrayal in his eyes. You set me up. You set yourself up, I said, the moment you chose money over honor. I closed my lighter. The click echoed in the silence. Morrison looked at his gun, at Chen and the FBI agents, at me and Danny. Then, slowly, he lowered the weapon and placed it on his desk. It's over, Frank, I said quietly. The whole thing is coming down. Morrison slumped into his chair. He looked smaller suddenly, diminished. Just an old man who'd sold his soul and was finally being asked to pay the price. Where's the evidence? Chen asked. I handed her the folder. Everything. Names, dates, amounts. 5 years of corruption documented by Andrew Beckett. He died trying to expose this. The least we can do is make sure his death meant something. Chen flipped through the pages, her expression growing darker with each one. This is extensive. If even half of this is true, we're looking at the biggest municipal corruption case in California history. It's all true, Danny said. We verified as much as we could. Then we have work to do, Chen said. She looked at me. Detective Carver, I'm going to need you and Detective Ortega to testify, to walk us through everything you found. We'll do whatever you need, I said. Chen nodded. Then she looked at Morrison. Take him into custody. Read him his rights. And someone call the mayor. Tell him we need to have a conversation about his finances. As the FBI agents led Morrison out, he looked back at me one last time. They'll kill you, Vince. DeLuca won't let this stand. You're a dead man walking. Maybe, I said. But I'll die clean. That's more than you can say. The next 72 hours were a blur. If you think that's where the story ends, you haven't been listening. The explosions came after the first arrest. FBI raids across the city. Arrests of city officials, businessmen, police officers. Vincent DeLuca was picked up at his house in the Hollywood Hills. Mayor Calhoun was arrested during a press conference. Golden State Development's offices were sealed and searched. The press had a field day. Headlines screamed about corruption and murder. Andrew Beckett's face was on every newspaper, hailed as a martyred hero who died fighting for truth. Danny and I spent 2 days being debriefed by the FBI, walking them through every piece of evidence, explaining how Beckett had built his case, how we'd found the hidden safe, how Morrison had pulled a gun on us. Phone records we pulled later showed the 9 p.m. call came from a payphone 3 blocks from Golden State's office. We never proved who made the call. Didn't need to. Castellano's movements that night lined up too perfectly with Beckett's last hour. Beckett answered the wrong phone call. On the third day, Senator Chen called us into her temporary office downtown. "Gentlemen," she said, "I wanted to thank you personally. What you did, what you risked, is remarkable. You could have taken DeLuca's money, you could have walked away, but you didn't." "We're cops," I said. "It's what we're supposed to do." "In theory," Chen said. "But in practice, most cops in your position would have made a different choice. So thank you." She paused. "There's going to be a long investigation, trials, testimony. It could take years to fully unravel DeLuca's operation and prosecute everyone involved. I hope you're both prepared for that." "We are," Danny said. "Good. Because Los Angeles is going to need honest cops like you to help rebuild. Trust in the police department, especially you, Detective Carver. I know you were planning to retire." "I am retiring," I said firmly. 2 weeks, remember. I've given this city 23 years. That's enough." Chen smiled. "I understand. But before you go, I wanted you to know something. Andrew Beckett's wife, Sarah, she asked me to pass along a message. She said to tell you that her husband would be proud, that you finished what he started." I felt something twist in my chest. Pride, maybe, or grief, or just exhaustion finally catching up with me. "Tell her thank you," I said, "and tell her that her husband was braver than any cop I ever knew, including me." My last day as a cop was quiet. I cleaned out my desk, said goodbye to the few detectives I still respected, and turned in my badge and gun for the final time. My lighter stayed with me. I'd earned that. Danny walked me out to my car. "What are you going to do now?" he asked. "Retire to somewhere quiet? Fish? Play? Golf?" "I don't fish," I said. "And I hate golf. I'll probably just sit on a porch somewhere and drink whiskey while the world goes to hell." "Sounds peaceful," Danny said. "Sounds boring," I admitted. "But after 23 years of this, boring sounds pretty good." I paused. "What about you? You staying with the department?" "Yeah," Danny said. "Someone has to help clean up the mess. Might as well be me." "Just be careful," I said. "They arrested a lot of people, but they didn't get everyone. There are still plenty of corrupt cops out there. Still plenty of criminals with badges." "I know," Danny said. "But maybe that's changing. Maybe what we did, what Beckett did, will make a difference. Even if it's just a little one." "Maybe," I said. I didn't really believe it, but I appreciated his optimism. We shook hands. Then I got in my car and drove away from the precinct for the last time. I didn't go straight home. Instead, I drove to Griffith Park, to the spot where Andrew Beckett had died, where some unknown killer had put a bullet in the back of his head and ended his crusade for justice. The crime scene tape was gone. The evidence markers were gone. I stood there for a long time, looking out at the city spread below. The morning smog was rolling in again, same as the day we found Beckett. Los Angeles looked almost beautiful. Buildings gleaming in the sun, palm trees swaying in the breeze, the ocean glittering in the distance. The city looked clean from up here, beautiful even, but I could still see the bloodstain in the dirt. Faint now, almost gone. Almost. Some stains never wash away. Not from the ground, not from your hands, not from your memory. Andrew Beckett had tried to clean this city. He died trying. But I knew the truth. Knew what was hiding under that beautiful surface. The corruption, the violence, the endless grinding machine that ate good people and turned them into victims or villains. And maybe, his death would make a difference. Maybe the arrests and trials and exposure would actually change things. Or maybe nothing would change. Maybe DeLuca would be replaced by someone worse. Maybe new corrupt officials would rise to fill the vacuum. Maybe the city would keep eating its own over and over, forever. But at least Andrew Beckett had tried. At least he'd stood up and said, no more. At least he died believing that truth mattered. That had to count for something. I pulled out my lighter one last time, looked at the inscription worn smooth by 20 years of handling. Stay true. I had. In the end, I had. I flicked it open. Closed. Open. Closed. Then I put it back in my pocket and got back in my car. I started driving. Away from Griffith Park. Away from downtown. Away from everything I'd known for 23 years. The city grew smaller in my rearview mirror. And with every mile, I felt something lifting off my shoulders. The weight of all those years. All those compromises. All those times I'd looked the other way because it was easier than fighting. I was done carrying that weight. I was done being a cop in a city that didn't want to be saved. I was just Vincent Carver now, a man with a pension and a clear conscience, and no idea what came next. And you know what? That was enough.
And so our tale concludes, friends of the shadows. Vincent Carver walked away. DeLuca died in prison. The mayor resigned in disgrace. Justice came, but it came with a price. You found Shadow and Sax Radio, where rain writes the stories and the night never tells the truth. Out there, the city's still breathing, slow, heavy, and full of secrets. Some cities you can leave behind, others follow you wherever you go. The corruption was exposed. The guilty were punished. But in cities like Los Angeles, there's always another conspiracy waiting. Always another good man who has to choose between his conscience and his safety. Vincent Carver chose truth. Andrew Beckett chose truth. They paid the price. But sometimes, just sometimes, the price is worth it. Shadow and Sax Radio, transmitting from the spaces between truth and consequence. Until we meet again in the dark, keep your eyes open, keep your conscience clean, and remember, the city eats its own. But sometimes, just sometimes, the city chokes on what it tries to swallow. Good night, listeners. Watch your back. And maybe check who's following you.
This has been a Shadow and Sax Radio production. The words have gone quiet, but the night is just getting started. Keep the lights low, settle in, and let the music take you the rest of the way. You're listening to Shadow and Sax Radio.
The This town smells like burnout chances, cheap cologne and old regrets. Streetlights blink like tired witnesses to promises nobody kept. Every bar stool tells a story, every booth knows how it ends. Shake a hand, you're making deals with ghosts who used to be your friends. Ashtray City, breathing sin, chewing up whoever gets in. You don't fall, you're pulled below. That's the only truth I know. They sell hope in paper envelopes, stamp it confidential lies. If you read between the fine print, that's where half the city dies. I tried to leave with clean intentions, but the smoke stayed in my clothes. You don't escape a place like this, you just learn how deep it goes. Ashtray City, burn it down, it'll still rise without a sound. You don't lose, you don't get free, you just become what you see.
They shake your hand and smile wide, say trust me with their fingers crossed. Every favor has a price, every win is something lost. Diamonds shine under dim lights, cover cracks you're not allowed to see. They call it business, call it progress, I call it learned cruelty. Gold on dirty hands, that's how this city stands. Built on deals nobody signed, paid in lives they left behind. I tried to wash the feeling off, but it don't fade, it just stains. You can drown in all this money, still choke on what remains. Diamonds shine under dim lights, cover cracks you're not allowed to see. They call it business, call it progress, I call it learned cruelty. Gold on dirty hands, that's how this city stands. Built on deals nobody signed, paid in lives they left behind. They say survival's just a skill, like you can learn it clean and quick, but every step you take up here leaves another body in the your stand. I won't shake dirty hands. Golden dirty hands.
Watch good men fold their cards, not because they were weak, but the house don't lose in this town. It just changes who it beats. You start with lines you won't cross, then redraw them when you're tired. Funny how fast never turns into something you require. Nobody leaves clean, not from a town like this. You pay in parts of who you were, just to keep your name off the list. I try to walk a straighter road, but it curved beneath my feet. Every exit leads you back to the same old broken street. They don't chase you with a gun, wait until you agree that staying quiet's cheaper than being what you used to be. Nobody leaves clean, you just learn to live unseen. If you're still breathing, still here, you already paid the fee.
You learn fast what not to say, which questions close a door. The loud ones don't last long here, the quiet ones get more. Every truth has a landlord, every secret has a cost. Pay it weekly, pay it nightly, or end up somewhere lost. Silence is the rent you pay if you wanna stay alive. Words get people disappeared, quiet keeps you breathing fine. I practice looking past the truth like it wasn't standing there. Some nights I hear it screaming, but I pretend I didn't didn't hear. They don't gag you, don't threaten, they just show you what's at stake, then wait for you to understand how much noise a life can make. Silence is the rent you pay every single day you stay. Speak too loud, you're gone by dawn, so you learn to look away.
Paper trails don't bleed or cry. They don't beg when they're ignored, but they bury more people than a loaded 44. Initial here, stamp it there, fold it nice and file it deep. Funny how a missing page can make a killer go to sleep. Paper trails, ink and lies, signed away beneath the lines. Truth don't scream, it just waits in a drawer marked classified. I tried to follow every step, but the steps were made to fade. Someone always burns the bridge before the truth gets paid. They say justice moves slow, but I've seen it stop cold. All it takes is one right name and a story never told. Paper trails, silent graves, where the honest disappear. If you wanna know how it works, just see who's still standing here.
Neon hums above the street, doesn't ask you where you've been. It lights the saints and sinners exactly the same way in. Neon doesn't judge, it just shows you who you are. Every crack, every scar, right there in borrowed stars. I've seen monsters cry for mercy, seen angels sell their soul. This city don't take sides, it just collects the toll. the glow, 'cause it tells me all the things I already know. Neon doesn't judge, it just shows you who you are. Every crack, every scar, right there in borrowed stars. You can lie to lovers, lie to God above, but the street light sees it all, and it never looks away. Neon doesn't judge, doesn't care how far you fall. It just keeps shining down on the truth of us all.
They slid the envelope across, didn't say a word out loud, but silence speaks fluent money in a place like this town. I told myself it was nothing, just another dirty deal, but forgetting costs interest when the memories are real. I was paid to forget, but it cost me more than cash. Every night I still remember what I traded for the stack. Faces fade, names disappear, but the guilt stays sharp and clear. You can buy yourself some time, never buy another year. I still see it when I close my eyes, every truth I let decay. Funny how forgetting someone else is how you fade away. I was paid to forget, but the debt still hasn't cleared. Money spends, the truth remains whispering in my ear.
We meet where promises die, no names, no questions asked, just empty glasses, tired eyes, and stories from the past. Everybody swore once they'd never cross that line. Now we toast to all the things we swore we'd leave leave behind. Welcome to the Broken Oaths Club. Membership paid in shame. We don't ask how you got here, we already know your name. Some come in clean, leave bent. Some never leave at all. The rule is simple, sweetheart. Don't pretend you didn't fall. They say time heals everything, but time just teaches lies. It teaches you how to sit still while the best part slowly Broken Oaths Club lights down, nowhere else for us to go. Raise a glass to who we were before we learned the score.
I didn't lose a fight, didn't miss a step. I just stayed too long in a game already set. I didn't lose, the city won. It always does when it's done. Every choice felt mine, every road felt fair. Funny how they all led right back here. You can run, you can hide, you can swear you're above it, but the city plays forever, and it never forgets. I didn't lose, the city won. Close the book, another one.
My heart only works in emergencies, screams when it's already too late. I ignore it till the damage is done, then ask why it aches. I smell the fire every night, still light another match. Tell myself I'm different now, like lies don't latch. Smoke alarm heart only sounds when it burns. I don't learn before the flames, I learn when everything turns. Maybe I like the warning more than the quiet truth. because silence makes me think about what I still might lose. Smoke alarm heart, keep screaming if you must. I'll keep pretending I'm safe in a city built on dust.
Morning comes like bad news, too bright, too honest. Every excuse I drank last night still tastes toxic. I replay every choice, every line I've been. Funny how the pain don't fade, it just slows its rent. Truth don't fade, it just hurts slower. This ain't regret, it's a moral hangover. If guilt were gone by sunrise, I'd sleep a lot more sound. But conscience keeps a ledger that always comes around. Still wakes you sober.
When the shops all close early and the streets stop pretending, that's when you see the truth in how every story is ending. I stood beneath the last light, watch my shadow stretch thin, asked myself who I'd become, and when it all began, when the last light goes out, you'll know what you became. No more deal Some cities build you up, some teach you how to bend. This one just waits patiently to see how you end. When the last light goes out and the street goes quiet and still, you'll finally see the cost of learning how to live here.
That's Shadow and Sax Radio. Until next time, stay smooth.